Welcome to the PreSnap Podcast presented by Line Star. All things fantasy football with a sprinkle of sports betting analysis alongside Tyler Weeman. I'm Shannon Somerville. We've got your daily fantasy football analysis for Week 13 in the NFL. We'll also have your touchdown calls, your prop bets, and some underdog picks for you. Tyler, buckle up for mine. I got a good one for you. A bold take. Fortune favors the bold. It's going to favor me this week with a bold underdog pick, so stay tuned for that.
Yeah, I told you about one pretty bold that I kind of like.
We got a lot on the plate for today and an exciting week in the NFL because 10 games have a point spread of 4 or less. It's going to be an awesome week. I think the best slate we've seen so far. What game are you most looking forward to?
I got to say it's this Bengals versus Chiefs game.
This,
This game is going to be super fun. Mm-hmm. I'm really excited about it. It looks like we're getting Jamar Chase back for it. Hopefully the Chiefs wide receivers get a little healthier as well.
A rematch of last year's AFC Championship game that saw Patrick Mahomes getting bumped out en route to a Super Bowl for the Bengals. It was a great game again.
It was.
It was a phenomenal game. Both offenses were electric in that. So will we see a repeat of last year? Will Patrick Mahomes have vengeance on his mind as he heads into Cincinnati to take on the Bengals? We'll see.
Yep.
Well, in fact, that's a good segue into our daily fantasy projections for Week 13. Why? Because the first quarterback we'll be talking about is Patrick Mahomes, who is now a proud papa, by the way, to a son. Patrick LaVon Mahomes III was born 2 days ago. So the proud papa heading into this one with a little extra motivation. Gotta do his son proud this week against the Bengals. He is already making his son proud, though, leading the league in passing yards by over 400 yards. Mahomes has been phenomenal. He's the front runner for MVP so far this season. And going up against the Bengals, their defense will be tough. Lou Anarumo is a good defensive coordinator that makes really good adjustments. What do you like about Mahomes this week?
I don't know if it's really going to be that tough. They haven't really played that much from the quarterback position. I mean, Tannehill just threw for 291. Mm-hmm. Pickett threw for 265. Brissett threw for 278. I mean, what is Mahomes going to do to them if those guys are pushing 300? Mm-hmm. I mean, they really haven't played a elite passing quarterback all season long. Mm-hmm. Tua would be the closest, and that's the game that Tua got hurt and left early. So I really like Patrick Mahomes in this game. I think he's going to carve up this defense just like he does everybody else.
That's true. He is hard to stop now in the NFL. There really is no stopping him, only kind of containing him. From a daily fantasy perspective, you also mentioned before the show you like his price tag and the ownership is looking like it's kind of low this week.
And I'm glad you brought that up. His ownership looks really low. As far as this game, it looks like more people are going towards Burrow, which his price point is great, and I understand why people are going there. But at that ownership for Patrick Mahomes, and a lot of his stacking options are cheap outside of Kelsey, so it's pretty easy to stack him even though he's a higher priced quarterback.
Well, let's talk about Justin Herbert, who is also a pretty dynamic passer in the NFL. In fact, he is 5th in passing yards this season. He had 271 and 3 passing touchdowns against the Arizona Cardinals last week. Man, Herbert can thread the needle and throw it on a dime, and going up against the Las Vegas Raiders, who rank dead last in pass defense DVOA. Man, is this a mouth-watering matchup for daily fantasy? What do you think?
I really think it is. So all season long, there's been a narrative like, hey, let's just pick on the Detroit Lions. That may have switched to the Las Vegas Raiders. They have been awful on defense. They're ranked 28th, allowing 1.7 pass touchdowns per game over the last 9, and they're allowing 261 pass yards a game. Herbert's in a great spot. Keenan Allen is back. We finally saw him up to like a 90% snap count again. He's getting weapons back. He's in a good spot. I really like Herbert. And once again, ownership looks like they're not really there.
All right. So way to capitalize on some quarterback trends there. Let's take a look at the running back. The first running back we're looking at is Josh Jacobs, who is coming off a monster game where he had 303 total yards from scrimmage, absolutely dominated last week against the Seattle Seahawks, and he is now leading the league in rushing yards. Move over Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley. Josh Jacobs is here to stay, and he's got a favorable matchup going up against the Chargers, who rank 29th in rush defense DVOA. Man, Josh Jacobs, an absolute beast. What do you think for him this week?
Yeah, I love Jacobs this week. The Chargers literally just cannot stop the run. They just let James Conner run all over them. And that's a guy that literally hasn't been able to run over anybody all year. But the Chargers, he was able to do it. They're allowing 145 yards and 1.1 touchdowns per game over the last 9. You just got to really like Josh Jacobs. He has elite usage. He's getting a majority of the work out of that backfield, and he's catching passes now too.
Right.
So he has a solid floor and a huge ceiling, as we saw last week.
Yeah, I mean, it was absolutely unbelievable what he did to that Seahawks defense. Another tough dual threat running back is Austin Eckler. On the other side of that matchup, he's averaging 95 yards from scrimmage. That ranks 7th. And against the Raiders, they rank 23rd in rush defense DVOA. What do you make of Eckler's spot in Week 13?
Yeah, now you brought up their 23rd in rush DVOA and their 28th versus the RB as a whole. But where they've really given up points is pass catching running backs. They're allowing 6.5 receptions a game, 54 yards to the running back per game receiving.
Yeah.
And now you get possibly the best receiving back outside of maybe CMC. Sure. And so it really lines up very, very well for Eckler. So I love this spot. He has probably the highest floor ceiling combo out of all running backs, and in a great matchup. I love going there.
I like your sleeper pick here with Pittsburgh Steelers running back Jaylen Warren. The rookie running back is going up against the Atlanta Falcons this week, who ranked 25th in rushing yards allowed. What do you make of Warren this week?
So, Warren, we do have to talk about Najee Harris a little bit. He left the game last week hurt. He has missed practice all week this week, so there is a very good chance he's going to miss. Pay attention to that, because if Harris is in, I obviously don't like this pick as much, but Jaylen Warren, Atlanta ranks 23rd, allowing 107 rushing yards a game, and they allow a touchdown per game. Warren is a favorite of Tomlin. They're going to go to him a lot, just like they do Najee Harris if he's out. So I love Warren. I would expect him to pick up all of the workload and maybe a little extra.
Nice little sleeper play for you there. Let's move on to our wide receivers. And Jamar Chase is back, so you know we got to talk about him for daily fantasy this week. He was out with a hip injury, and now he is back and ready to go for this AFC Championship rematch from last year. Should be pretty exciting. Now, the offense did well last week against the Titans without him. Now he's back, though, and you know Joe Burrow's going to go to his favorite receiver, who basically says, you know what, Jamar's down there somewhere. I'm just going to throw it up, put it in a zip code, and let him take it down. He's averaging 86 yards per game, which ranks 8th. And when you look at this Kansas City Chiefs defense, one of their Achilles heels has been the wide receiver one. What do you make of it?
And that's exactly why I like this one. One, this game total is the highest game of the week, and top end wide receiver ones have absolutely crushed this Chiefs team. Just to name a few, Diggs, Adams, Evans, Mike Williams, even Christian Kirk all had giant games versus this KC team. And not to mention, Chase had a pretty good game against them last year in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So I think he can totally take advantage of this matchup in an elite game.
Absolutely. In fact, that was a trend that I was picking on basically all year with prop bets, was taking the opposing team's wide receiver one and betting the over on receiving yards. And it hit, I think, 4 out of 5 of the times. The only one who didn't was Deebo Samuel. His usage is a little bit different, though, than your traditional wide receiver one. So it's a good place to target them.
And another thing to bring up is people are usually apprehensive about clicking, a guy when he's coming off of the IR. Last week, he was limited in practice all week. He probably could have played last week, but Bengals decided to keep him out for another week, let him get healthier. Once again, he's been in limited practice all week. They're saying he's likely to go. I doubt he really has any limitations on him.
All right. Another guy with no limitations, Amon-Ra St. Brown, who had himself a feast on Thanksgiving, 122 yards and a touchdown on Thanksgiving against the Bills, whose defense ranks 3rd in DVOA. Not a bad play. And then going up against Jacksonville this week, they're kind of a middle-of-the-pack defense. Will he have another monster game this week?
I've said it week in and week out. We've literally talked about him almost every week that he's been healthy and playing here. Until he's over 8K price range, I am pretty much starting him every single week. Yeah. He's once again in a great spot. He's averaging 9.5 targets, 7.5 receptions over the last 4 games. He's a huge factor on this offense. And Jared Goff is way better at home. The game here is at home, and Jacksonville is allowing 39% more fantasy points to the wide receiver when they're away.
All right, let's go from Jared Goff's weapon to Justin Herbert's weapon. That's Keenan Allen, who we're starting to see finally healthy. When he is healthy, he is an absolute weapon for Justin Herbert. And this week, can't get in a much better spot than going up against the Las Vegas Raiders, who ranked 32nd in pass defense DVOA. Ooh, could be in for a big game here. What do you think?
Yeah, he really could be in a good game. Like we've talked about with Justin Herbert, is this Raiders offense or defense is terrible. Yeah. So Keenan Allen is going to get all the targets he can handle. He is a great weapon. Mike Williams is likely going to be out again. And like I said, Allen is back up to a 90% snap share. He's in a great spot to succeed, and not a ton of ownership is going his way right now.
All right. I'm surprised about that, considering what a good matchup it is. So hop on that before everybody else does. Maybe don't tell it. We shouldn't have told everybody when they're going to go do it. All right. Lastly, you have a sleeper pick here that, dare I say, is a hibernator.
He sure is.
Who is it?
We got Sky Moore. He is extremely cheap. He was a high draft pick for the Chiefs, and he's coming off back-to-back games with 6 targets. At his price, from a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes, give me 6 targets all day long, especially when he's as athletic and explosive as Sky Moore is.
All right, so some great plays there at wide receiver for you. Now let's go to the tight ends. No surprise here. Travis Kelce. That's your number 1 guy here in daily fantasy this week. He leads the league with 12 receiving touchdowns, which is fantasy gold, averaging 82.9 receiving yards per game, and going up against Cincinnati. They are fairly good against tight ends. However, this is Travis Kelce we're talking about, not a normal tight end. And
it's Travis Kelce with a banged up wide receiver core. So he's going to get all the opportunity he can possibly handle. And there's a real chance for a Kelce ceiling game here. So I love it. His ownership is going to be there, but I'm really not shying away just because of a high ownership.
Next up, we're looking at Steelers tight end Pat Freiermuth, who's a nice play here, averaging 52 receiving yards per game. What we're liking here is the Falcons, his opponent this week. They are 29th in pass defense DVOA. Haven't been able to stop many receivers, so tight end's in a good spot here too.
Tight end's in a good spot, and also he's just had a really high usage, 7.5 targets a game over the last 4, and Atlanta's allowing 42% more fantasy points to the tight end when they're home. So,
it's a nice little nugget.
It is. Atlanta's giving it up. Their Steelers are using Freiermuth at a lot, high rate. So I think there's a good chance he gets into the end zone, has, 60, 70 yards, and that'll do it at his price.
I just need to praise you for the fact that you spelled his name correctly in our rundown today.
I did.
And that's a name that I have to look up because it's Freiermuth.
The whole reason was, was it this Monday that they played?
Yeah, or
it was one of the last primetime shows. I had to do it 2 or 3 times, and then that's now I got it.
We got it down. All right. We're starting to get our spellings down. By the end of the season, we'll have them all, I bet, and then it'll be irrelevant for next year. Nonetheless, let's look at defenses this week for daily fantasy. And the first defense we're looking at is the Seattle Seahawks going up against the Rams. Now, Seattle ranks 19th in DVOA. They did just get destroyed by Josh Jacobs. However, they're going up against the Rams. They rank 27th in offensive DVOA. Not the same Rams team we saw last year. They've really been struggling. So why not, pick on them?
And that's really it. It's just anybody versus the Rams at this point. They're hurt at running back. They're hurt at wide receiver, hurt at quarterback.
Their offensive line is a mess.
Their D-line is now hurting, too.
Ugh.
Like, the team's just in shambles. They might as well pack it up and just move on.
You know who's not packing it up? The Jets, Jets, got their defense this week in daily fantasy going up against the Minnesota Vikings. The Jets are 4th in defensive DVOA. Over the last 10 weeks, the Jets defense has allowed the fewest points in the NFL. This is a championship caliber defense. And just another stat for you, top 5 defense in yards and points allowed. That's the first time for a Jets team since 2010 in the Rex Ryan days. Jets defense is back.
The Jets D is absolutely legit, and they're super cheap this week. They are going against the tough team in the Minnesota Vikings. But if Sauce is able to contain Justin Jefferson a little bit, then this team looks totally different. And I think there is a chance. We know Kirk Cousins can make mistakes in big games.
Oh, yeah.
And this is a big one that the Vikings do need to win.
Yeah,
here.
This is massive playoff implications in this one. And when you talk about the Minnesota Vikings offense, they actually rank 20th on offense. So I know that when we see that offense, we think explosive because they are. They've got Justin Jefferson on their team. They've got a lot of weapons. However, they can struggle, and especially Kirk Cousins is kind of the area where the Jets will be forcing him into bad positions where he just can't make mistakes.
And they struggled big time versus the Cowboys, who don't send a lot of extra pressure.
Right. They just drop him back.
Similar to the Jets.
Yeah.
And so I think there's paths here that Cousins can throw a couple picks, get sacked 3 to 5 times, and at the Jets price, like that is more than enough to make them fantasy relevant.
Well, some great plays there for daily fantasy. Good luck to you, and make sure to check out linestarapp.com for your lineup optimizer and all the tools you need to go out there and dominate in daily fantasy. Also, make sure to check out our Props Edge tool as well, brand new. It'll help you out in your daily fantasy. Now let's get to our touchdown calls of the day for Week 13. Tyler, who are you going with for an anytime touchdown?
I'm going with Josh Jacobs. There's just no way I can doubt this guy right now. He has 9 touchdowns on the season. The Chargers can't stop the run. They're allowing 1.1 touchdowns per game, and I think Jacobs is going to run another one in on.
I'm also going with a pretty powerful running back in Nick Chubb for an anytime touchdowns. He's got 12 touchdowns on the year. That is second among all running backs, behind only Jamal Williams. He also has had a touchdown in 8 of 11 games this season. The guy can squat 675 pounds. He's one of the most powerful backs in the NFL, plus he's fast too. That speed-power combo is going to crush this Houston Texans team that ranks 30th in rush defense DVOA. It is also the weekend for the Georgia Bulldogs as they take on LSU for an SEC championship title. And I think once they win that, it'll give the former Georgia Bulldog and Nick Chubb a little extra motivation, a little extra juice to go out there and represent for the University of Georgia.
It's all about Georgia.
It's all about UGA. So those are our touchdown calls. Now let's move on to our prop bets. Make sure to place your prop bets on Underdog Fantasy or Prize Picks. Tail us there if you want. Let's get to it. Prop bets for Week 13. Where are you headed?
Going right back to my touchdown call, Josh Jacobs over 90.5 rushing yards. Like I said, the Chargers can't stop the run. They're allowing 145 rushing yards per game. Jacobs gets over 80% of the work. I just don't think they're going to be able to stop Jacobs whatsoever. Just hammer it.
I'm really excited for my prop bet this week. I'm going Jets quarterback Mike White over 225.5 passing yards. Now, White has had 3 games where he has started for the Jets, and he has had over 250 yards in each of those games. He had 315 passing yards against the Chicago Bears last week. He was an absolute spark plug for this offense. He's also a really tall quarterback, 6'5". He can stay in the pocket. He's not afraid of pressure, and he was making throws on the run last week. He looked excellent, and he's got a great matchup this week going up against the Minnesota Vikings. Their pass defense, not great. It's one of the worst in the league, actually. So Mike White, give me that 225 passing yards. I'm taking it. I'm also dreaming of a Mike White Christmas.
I know you are.
As a Jets fan.
if you also look on Underdog and Prize Picks, the line is significantly higher on those.
Oh, wow. So lock it in there.
Yeah. So I think it was 235 on Prize Picks and like 240 on Underdog.
Oh, my goodness. Yep. So if you can, lock them in. Lock in those Prize Picks and Underdog plays for you. Make sure to stay tuned for our props show tomorrow. We'll be coming out with that. We'll give you the top 5 best player prop bets on Underdog Fantasy and Prize Picks. So make sure you are subscribed to our channel and get notifications on our videos so that you know when we're coming out with them. And you can hop on those bets right away. Now it's time for our Underdog picks, our dogs of the day. Tyler, who are you picking this week? We've got a great week of games, week 13.
We do.
Not huge underdog, not a lot of huge underdogs in this game. Like I said at the top of the show, 10 games by 4 points or less in spread. What do you think?
Well, I am going with the Jets. We're going with the Jets +3. I think 3 points here is just too much in this matchup with this defense and possibly a new offensive identity under the Mike White.
Oh, yeah.
So I like the Jets here. I think there's a good chance that they win outright.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the Minnesota Vikings have been a bit lucky, and I want to pick the Jets as well. I wanted to. However, just being the Jets fan myself, I knew that if I picked them, then they wouldn't win. So I'm glad one of us did. So we show support to the Jets there. Yeah, I think it is a great matchup because the Minnesota Vikings, as I mentioned, they have been unlucky, and I believe they ranked 20th in overall DVOA. So their stats aren't, I know everybody looks at their record and
I'm just riding with Don Somerville here.
There you go. Always ride with Don Somerville when you're in doubt. I'm going with the Bengals to cover their spread. Right now it's at 2.5. However, I do anticipate that line to move in favor of the Chiefs. And once it is at around 3.5, I'm all over that for the Bengals to cover. Why is that 3.5 important? Because the Bengals, 3 of their 4 losses this season have come by 3 points or less. And when you look at the Bengals offense, this is the best offense we've seen from them. They're looking more like the offense that went to the Super Bowl last year. In fact, they rank first in offensive DVOA over the last 4 weeks. And in some metrics, they're even better than they were last season. They lead the NFL with a 1.23 EPA per offensive drive. That is actually 2 times higher than any other offense. And I haven't even started talking about their defense that just held Derrick Henry to his lowest EPA per carry the last 5 seasons. Yeah. Their defense has been incredible and maybe doesn't get as much attention because that offense is so dynamic. But Lou Anarumo is just absolutely making adjustments and figuring out how to stop people like Derrick Henry. And I think he will do the same against the Chiefs. He did it last year. They were able to kind of confuse Patrick Mahomes in the second half, drop some people back, and a little cover 2 there. I think they will be able to do it again this year. But it is a risky play. Going against Patrick Mahomes is never something I want to do.
Yeah.
That being said, if there is any team that can beat him, it is the Bengals.
Yeah, I don't think it's that risky. I think it's good play. They're at home.
Yeah.
I mean, home in a close game.
Got to go with the home team a little bit in that one. Also, I found an interesting stat on how much DJ Reader is an X factor to this Bengals defense. He returned to injury week 11, and since that has resulted in a 20% increase in defensive success rate. So he is back in the game in this one. Look out for that. So Bengals, Jets, let's do it.
Yeah, I told you earlier today that I also kind of like Houston +7.
That's kind of a gross pick, but
it's super gross. Super gross.
I mean, I don't hate it.
Deshaun's been gone for over a year.
It's a really good point.
He hasn't played there. Plus, it's in Houston. That team, those fans, everything are going to be fired up to play him.
I agree.
I can see it.
There will be a lot of distractions for Deshaun Watson in this one, and you're talking about protests. You're talking about even victims of his in the stands. I think supposedly the Texans are. Yeah, it's going to be an absolute madhouse there. So with that being said, the Texans could absolutely lock in on this one And
plus, Cleveland's
you never
rush
know.
D isn't that good. Damian Pierce could have a good game,
Sure.
and he could literally single-handedly keep him into this game.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I worry about is Nick Chubb just going ham on
Oh,
this
absolutely.
Texans
Hey,
team. And all Deshaun would have to do in that situation
Yeah,
is just hang it off.
Texans D is horrible, but they're absolutely going to be fired up.
Yeah. So some great picks there. Awesome analysis as usual, Tyler. And make sure you check out linestarapp.com for some more analysis and stats, analytics, everything you need to dominate in daily fantasy and your prop bets as well. We've got that new Props Edge tool, so make sure to check that out. If you're watching us on YouTube, please do us a favor, like this video, subscribe to our channel, sign up for notifications, and comment below. Let us know who you've got this week in daily fantasy or your prop bets. Who you got it as a touchdown call, let us know. Also, if you're fading our bets as well, let us know that too.
Yeah.
Are you in on the Jets or are you not? We need to know, so comment below. That's going to do it for us in Week 13. Good luck to you. We'll see you next time.
Have a good one, guys. Bye.